and welcome to Framework Tutoring. And thank you so much for tuning into this video. This is our fourth and last video in our first week of this course, and we're gonna, as you can expect, go over the math section of the SAT. So let's get started. All right, quick table of contents. We'll go over the two sections, an overview on what to expect. All right, math section overview. The SAT math section makes up the second portion of your entire SAT exam. It involves two parts, a no calculator section with 25 questions in 20 minutes, and a calculator section with 38 questions in 55 minutes. You'll take the no calculator section first, then take a 10-minute break, and then the calculator section. One more thing, the SAT provides you basic formulas and equations in the beginning of each exam, so don't stress too much about memorizing every single thing that you have to know on the formula section. Like, for example, I went into the SAT not knowing like the exact degrees of a special right triangle, but it didn't like cost me a question because I could go back and check. But you should be at a level where you're comfortable with most, if not all, the equations that they give you so that you are super good at using them even if you can't remember them specifically. All right, math section structure. The no calculator section has 15 multiple choice and 5 grid-in questions. These grid-in questions will basically give you a couple boxes, and those boxes will have a bunch of numbers, kind of similar to like if you've taken an AP test and you need to like mark up the first page with like your name and stuff, but it's with numbers. And then you write your answer in. So it's kind of like a free response section. You have to know your answer and you have to grid in the bubbles. The calculator section has 30 multiple choice questions and 8 grid-in questions. Like I said before, you need to write the exact answer in by filling the bubbles. And the test covers a variety of subjects, including algebra, geometry, trigonometry, and more. Just a quick, overview is that the no calculator section is more logical, so the questions might seem a little bit harder, but the calculator section is more technical, meaning the math abstractness isn't as hard, but there's more work you need to do a lot of the time. And it makes sense if you look at the times that they give you. I mean, it's really hard to like do a question that requires you to find like 5 equations when you only have a couple of minutes, like 15 minutes. But it's a lot easier if you have a test that gives you 55 minutes so that you can go through the test and actually go through the process of answering those questions. All right, question types. So the type of math question truly varies for each exam. There's really a bunch of different math concepts. They can be grouped into a couple of, categories, and we'll make sure to go over every single one of those categories in this course. But some will just ask you to solve an equation, others will give you a word problem, and it really just depends. But the questions on the SAT usually follow a pattern of difficulty on the math exam. For the notes calculator section, questions 1 and 5 are usually considered easy by the test takers. Questions 6 and 10 are considered medium, and questions 11 and 15 are considered hard, and the process repeats for the grid-in sections. And the calculator section follows the exact same pattern, with the difficulty resetting at the first grid-in question. And this is exactly why a lot of people, when taking the SAT math section, will first start off super confident and be like, oh yeah, I got this. But when they get to question 20 or question 30, they're like, oh my goodness, I have no idea what I'm looking at. So this is just something to mentally brace yourself so you're not super surprised when you see a hard question later in the exam. The questions usually get more difficult as they go. All right, general strategies for the math exam. The first is be simple. There's a reason why the SAT and the ACT are separate tests that are known for different things. The SAT is known as a much harder reading test. The ACT is known as a much harder math test. The SAT isn't a math competition. Like, if it was, I would definitely not have passed or done as well as a lot of people think I did. Because math is honestly not one of my favorite subjects. I'm a reading person, but that can be really important to remember during your exam, because sometimes you'll go through a question and you just feel like you have to do these super complicated steps, but most of the time you don't have to. So just something that you should probably know is that if the question just gets infinitely more difficult, then you're probably not doing something correctly. All right, the second is to know your calculator. You should be very comfortable with your calculator and the different functions, whether it's graphing things or typing in functions. And the final thing is plug and chug. Sometimes when you have multiple answers and you don't know which one to pick, the question format allows you to re-plug in those answers so you can find the one that's correct. And we'll definitely go over that strategy once we're actually in the math section. All right, thank you so much for joining us for this lesson and for week 1. We're excited to get to work starting next week.